Jackdaws and titmice. Embrace your inner Luddite. Stack enough firewood to make it through the deepest winter, and sink softly into the deep leaf mold beneath the ancient trees.
Because it's time to talk Tull to me.
This is chainsaw.
Oh.
Welcome back, everyone, to Talk Tull to Me. I am Omen Sade.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together, we are the symbiotic life form that is Feckless Momes.
And this is the collective unit that is Talk Tull to Me.
A sylvan frolic through the federally protected forest land of Prog Rock, in which Nick and I, armed only with some really cool sticks that we found, will get lost in the thick musical undergrowth. We will pick some delicious barberries for lunch, avoid the Palmer poison ivy, and get stung by some very nasty Barlow bugs, all while trying to catch a glimpse of the mythical, most wonderful, magical woodland creature of all, Ian Anderson.
Ian the Green.
Nick, that's not an M&M. Put that down. That's a John Glasscock dropping.
It's so good.
Get it out of your mouth.
Omen, it is a monumental day.
It sure is. And why is that, Nick?
Because not only are we starting a new album.
That's right.
We are starting a very special new album.
It's a very special album.
However, before we actually start the album, let's get a little bit into lore because there's a lot behind this, so we're going to have to space out these chunks as we go along.
Just for anyone who didn't read the name of the episode, the new album that we're getting into is Songs from the Wood.
That's right, baby.
1977.
1977, they're the 10th studio album,
Wow.
Also one of their most successful, both commercially and creatively, I would say.
Yeah.
It was the first one made after Ian Anderson left the city life and went to live in a 16th century Buckinghamshire farmhouse with Shona. So that is your inspiration for what is to come.
Yeah.
So Omen, you have a quote, I believe, from the maestro himself.
Yes, on the... Well, actually, so this is regarding the song, which is also the titular song of the album, Songs from the Wood.
Mm-hmm.
Anderson says, "After only living in hotels in the middle of London or in other cities, I was the last member of the group to move out of town and go live in the country. Suddenly, what had been part of my childhood, being outdoors and being in more remote and rural places, was now a reality of day-to-day life. So, that part of my life, owning a house and being in one place, had a stabilizing influence on me. It gave me a place to put down some roots, and I think that was reflected in the music. It also brought the guys in the group together, musically, in terms of their involvement. I would deliberately leave the studio and let them come up with some arrangements and ideas. It was an attempt to try to get the band working together as a unit and add a social as well as musical identity." And so there you have it. I mean, this album really represents so many different shifts in the trajectory of the band.
Mm-hmm.
Musically, philosophically, in terms of their workflow, and a big shift in the life of Ian Anderson, not just geographically, but also in the relationship part of his life. He's now with Shona, with whom he is still.
Right, it's the start of a long relationship.
Fruitful.
You always expect it going into a relationship, I'm assuming, but
sometimes you don't.
I mean, it didn't last with Jenny more than a few years, so this is his second marriage, his second, presumably intended to be a long relationship.
Right.
Yeah, and in 77 he's his late 20s at this point. I don't remember the math.
Yeah.
But he was. Yeah, in 69, he was like 21.
Yeah, but in the 70s, being 29 was, in these days, being like 40.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was ready to retire very, very shortly. So, yeah, this is 77. Also, some notes around this year. Remember Too Old to Rock and Roll?
I sure do. That was the one we just did.
That's right. That was some people Some people thought that to be commentary or potentially jumping on the bandwagon of the newly burgeoning punk movement.
Yeah.
So around that time in 77, we have the Buzzcocks coming out with the Spiral Scratch EP, and I'm sure a lot of our Anglo listeners will be a little more familiar with some of this stuff. The Damned came out with Damned, Damned, Damned. The Clash came out with The Clash.
Familiar
The Stranglers with Rattus Norvegicus. The Sex Pistols came out with God Save the Queen and Nevermind the Bollocks, which hit number 1.
Yeah, I mean, that's some of these are really iconic albums.
However, that being said, those are all punk albums. Some of the best-selling albums that year were Rumors from Fleetwood Mac.
Right, wow.
Out of the Blue by Electric Light Orchestra.
Okay.
Meatloaf's Bad Outta Hell.
Oh, one of my favorite albums of all time.
It's such a good album. Also a concept album.
Oh, yeah.
And other prog options like Peter Gabriel's first post-Genesis solo album and Floyd's Animals. So
77 was a very fecund year in terms of music.
Yeah, and it that's clear evidence that it wasn't all just punk all the time going in that direction.
But also, the point you made, whether or not Too Young to Die was, trying to get on the punk bandwagon or not, it was existing in relation to it.
Oh, it certainly was.
And
it
what
certainly
is so
was,
exciting about Songs from the Wood is it doesn't exist in relation to anything except what Ian and the band were really just excited about doing, which was singing about trees and ancient mythology.
It's the start of the supposed kind of fan-collected Brit folk trilogy. Ian is a lot less comfortable with the comparison of putting Songs from the Wood, Heavy Horses, and Stormwatch together.
Yeah, but he doesn't like titles at all.
Right. But thematically, they do feel like they do fit together. So whether he intended for it to happen or not, that's kind of they kind of coalesced in that sense.
Sure. So with that little bit of context, should we talk briefly about personnel?
Yeah, sure. Before we dive into the song, that is very valuable to have.
So this is an album in which we are retaining all of the personnel from the previous album. We have Ian Anderson on lead vocals, flute, acoustic guitar, mandolin, cymbals, whistles, and all instruments on track 2, which we'll talk about later. Martin Barr on the electric guitar and the lute. John Glasscock, backing vocals, bass guitar. John Evan, piano, organ, synthesizers. Barrymore Barlow, drums, percussion, marimba, glockenspiel, bells, knackers, and tambour. And with the addition as a fully fledged member of the band, Dee Palmer on piano.
Congratulations, Dee.
Portative, pipe organ, and synthesizers.
Amazing.
Welcome to the official band, Dee. Lovely to have you.
Here's your name tag and your welcome gift basket.
Yeah. It's
full of acorns and grass.
It's a high fiber.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We expect everyone to be regular.
So, with all of that said, Nick, dive, shall we?
Let us dive, we will.
To the song into.
From the Wood, the songs.
Here is Songs from the Wood. Let's have a listen.
Let me bring you songs from the woods to make you feel much better than you could know. Better than you could Dust know. You down from tip to toe. Dust you down from tip to toe. Show you how the garden grows. Show you how the garden grows. Hold you steady as you go. Hold steady as you join the chorus if you can. It'll make of you an honest man.
Nick, I listened to this song in my car yesterday, but I accidentally clicked just the song instead of the album. And so as I was driving through the streets of New York City, this was playing on repeat while I was desperately trying to punch into my phone to get the album itself. And it's a little bit weird. Nick,
This album is so very important to me in my Tull development.
Yeah.
This is the album that I listen to on repeat over and over and over, even more than War Child.
Yeah.
Much more than Thick as a Brick or Aqualung. Those are the ones that I cut my teeth on Tull. But this one spoke to me for some reason.
Well, yes, we always try on this podcast to acknowledge our personal connection to the songs and the albums, but also
Yes.
to, approach them from an analytical standpoint. But I'm going to say that's going to be a challenge. The separation is going to be a challenge with this album.
It really is.
Because like you, this album is super deeply meaningful for me. And I think that, part of it, if I could make a supposition, both you and I grew up in fairly rural settings.
Yes, very much so, yeah.
And so, and most of the music that was around us at the time had a more of an urban focus. We kind of came to our majority in the grunge period.
Yeah, early alternative rock.
Early
90s,
alternative rock,
2000s, yeah.
There was also a big, I don't know what your high school was like, but a lot of kids were, wanted to be white gangsters, and like they were listening to a lot of the amazing hip hop that was coming out at that time, which I definitely didn't appreciate at the time, and I'm now gaining an appreciation for. But it didn't speak to me because I didn't feel like there was any relationship with my experiences of life. But this album was all about living in the woods and kind of forest mysticism. And that really, my brother was a druid at that time. I was dabbling in paganism.
We also both grew up playing in the woods.
So much. And we were surrounded, I think, from our exposure to the Sterling Renaissance Fair, with a lot of people who spent a lot of their time living in the woods and who kind of had a poetic, artistic, spiritual connection with nature.
Yeah.
And this was the only music that I heard at that time that was about that subject that also rocked my face off. There was a lot of I learned three chords on the 12-string guitar and I'm going to sing about the fairies, kind of naff nonsense floating around. Not that there's anything wrong with that kind of stuff, except that it's very boring and I hate it. But this was yes, let's sing about living in the forest, but also here's the best electric guitar that you've ever heard.
Oh my gosh, musically, the rest of the album aside, this song is such a powerhouse. What an opener for an album.
I was realizing just listening to it now that this song is sort of in a Tull tradition. You have a little bit of this with Minstrel in the Gallery, but the opening song on the album really is the thesis of the album.
Yes, very, very true.
And sort of like Minstrel, this provides that thesis both in terms of the lyrics and in terms of the music.
I like it.
So many of the elements, if you look at the lyrics, he's saying, I'm going to bring you songs from the wood. And boy, howdy does he ever.
It's our standard breaking of the fourth wall. The narrator is telling you what is about to happen, what he's going to do, and how he's going to do it.
And even that goes back to, the roots of what they're drawing from at this time, which is this kind of old style medieval entertainment or
bardic, mythic.
Yeah, or the mumming shows. Mumming is for our non-UK listeners. Mumming is a English tradition of performing that happens around certain holidays and has a lot of different variations. But there's often this element of a group of players coming to where you are and saying, "We are going to perform a thing for you, and now we're doing it."
Fun fact: that is the start of Feckless Momes. That is how we got started as mummers.
That is a fun fact. And that is accurate. Yes, we did. I think one of our first things was a 2-person Christmas time telling of the story of Gawain and the Green Knight, where we traveled around my hometown. And did we do it in Weedsport as well?
I don't I don't think so.
I don't think we did.
I don't think so. I think you had a couple of family friends that we visited and did that.
Yeah, and it was great fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. We got cookies and homemade hooch and had a gay old time.
Yeah, it was pretty much ideal. So that is, that's some of the stuff that I feel like Ian is drawing from with the lyrics, but also musically, a lot of the elements that are being introduced here are thematically what we're going to see throughout. The intensely choreographed, polyrhythmic and polymetered songwriting that we're going to see throughout the rest of the album is all present here, for instance.
Yeah, that is very much safe to say. It is one heck of a prelude to what's to come, and it does not start out lightweight.
No. There's no easing us into this. Even from that first "Let Me Bring You" Songs from the Wood, which is done with that incredible harmony.
Mm-hmm.
Even the use of silence between those sung lines is so chilling, and it really just grabs your attention.
It makes it feel that much more like they are directly in front of you.
Absolutely.
It's not a wall of noise. It's so much more personal.
It's very, very direct address. And I think that's part of the reason that our impressionable young minds were so grasped by this.
It is such a unique sound, a unique delivery, very effective. Certainly nothing that we had heard at that point in our minuscule lives.
No, although, I will say that the very opener, before any of the instruments come in, it does remind me of some of the music that I was exposed to, because both my dad and my brother were very, very interested in folk music traditions and played a lot of it and researched a lot of it, just casually.
Sure.
But it reminds me still of some of the old English traditions of singing. There's something called part singing.
Okay.
It's basically a way of writing harmonies for people who don't read music.
Oh, okay.
There was a big tradition of that in Europe and in England. And then you can actually still find it in some parts of, I think, like Pennsylvania or some like the really Appalachian parts of the United States, where it just never died out. But it's a way of organizing groups of people into singing harmonies without them having to understand how to read music or music theory. And it has that kind of like, it hits you with that beautiful unison. And then there are the spaces in between it that allow you to kind of like react internally to what you've just heard.
Yeah. Yeah, and those spaces, that silence, those rests in the music are just as effective as the note that they chose to play.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Woof. Shall we get into nitty-gritty musically in this 5-minute masterpiece?
Nitty-gritty, witty, twitty.
Yep. That's what they say.
Okay, so we start out with only the voices.
So powerful, that opener, those opening vocals.
Yeah.
Oh, and now in my mind, they're so iconic for knowing Tull, for being so ingrained in Tull at this point. Like, that's an iconic sound to me.
Oh, yeah. And they make us wait for dropping in the music, but Ian gives us a little flute tease. Mm-hmm. Just the tip of the flute. The double flute going do 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 do.
Let me bring you love from the fields.
And then we have some more just voices. And then when the instruments finally do drop in, it's just the tambourine, drums, and acoustic guitar.
Just a couple beats right before the tambourine comes in, I heard, for the first time, and it's got to be because these headphones are so good, in the background, there is, I don't think it was on purpose. I think it's an accidental tambourine. It's like Glenn was reaching for the tambourine or Barrymore or whoever.
Knocked it with his wrist.
Hit it just a little bit. It's the faintest sound.
That's so funny.
It's so nice, yeah.
So then we have the little acoustic musical drop in with the tambourine, the drums, and the guitar.
Poppies red and roses filled with summer rain.
Followed shortly thereafter by the sick bass, electric guitar, and piano drop.
Life's long celebrations here. I'll toast you all in penny cheer.
Oh my gosh, that bass. However, right before the bass, Your favorite, I'm surprised you didn't mention it. We got the claps.
Oh, yeah, the double claps.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The classic Tull clap.
The Tull folk clap. Yeah, at about a minute is when the bass and piano and everything comes in, but that bass is so chunky. There's like a bleed effect or something that makes I don't have the terminology for it, but it's not just a clean bass.
No.
There is...
It comes through really heavily.
Oh my God.
It's very thick bass.
And what a juxtaposition for what could very easily be a strictly acoustic song.
Yeah.
Like it's a really nice touch.
You
there.
can tell that it's an electric bass. And it's,
absolutely,
it's very deliberate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. An intentionally electric bass.
Yes, as opposed to those unintentionally electric basses, otherwise known as fire hazards. The use of contrasting the acoustic, really, almost ancient sounds that we hear in the first number of measures with the really obviously electric sounds, I think, on paper, you'd be like, well, doesn't that take us out of the kind of woodsy feel? It doesn't. For me,
no,
it's
not
like,
at all.
All the acoustic sets the scene, and then you hit that bass, and it's like, oh, suddenly I can feel the roots of the trees through the ground, through my bare feet.
Yeah, it gives you that sense of old and kind of stalwart, having been there for a long time. Yeah, that's a really good point. I like that. That the imagery of the trees,
Yeah.
And then at about 1:30, the piano, the synth, whatever it is, turns into harpsichord.
Yeah, digital harps.
One of my all-time favorite sounds is a harpsichord.
Really
I'll tell you that. So good.
A singer of these ageless times, with kitchen prose and gutter rhymes.
Then at the chorus, we still have more heavy bass. We have some killer cymbal splashes at about 2:30.
Martin Barr is also really contributing in a meaningful way to all this, especially on the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
Songs from the wood.
Yeah.
That wasn't an exact replica,
but we get the
it was
gist.
more of the feeling of it.
Yeah.
Songs from the wood make you feel much better.
Flute, those really nice flutes at about 3 minutes. Martin just with some stings.
Yes.
At about 3:30. And by that point, everything has coalesced, and you are on your way, and you're only about halfway through the song.
Yeah, it is like the beginning, and this is the case with all good rock songs and all good music in general, but the beginning really hooks you, that those rests, those silences make you listen so carefully. And then when the electric gets in, the hook is set.
Yeah.
And then there's no escaping. I mean, you can fight it all you want, but you are going to get in the Songs from the Wood boat. You are going to be fried with just a little bit of butter and some fresh dill, and you're going to be delicious.
In no way is this a song that you skip, that you don't listen to the end to. It is a powerful, potent, relatively quick 5 minutes, and how unsatisfying would it be to not make it to the end of this song? Because
actually
it's not
illegal to skip it.
It's not. That's right. It is
in most
ancient
states,
ancient country law. Yeah,
that's right.
And it's not just repetition. Like we've heard some Tull songs that are like, okay, and now he just does the same thing 1.5, 2 more times. I get it.
Yeah.
In a pinch, if I had to, I would skip it. This is 5 minutes of all unique sound, and boy, howdy, does it work.
So we have a lot of time signature fun stuff going on. I tried my best to count it out in my head while driving yesterday. Couldn't do it. No idea. Genuinely no. I mean, usually I can be like, oh yeah, it's like this. No idea what's going on time signature wise.
It seems to fluctuate.
Yeah,
it
I think it does.
speeds up, it goes down, different instruments playing at different times, a lot like Joe said
Right.
in one of his Instagrams. It's a matter of playing with meter and 4/5 5/4 versus 4/4 and meeting up at certain points.
I think there are also just extra beats dropped in here and there, you know.
Probably at this point.
And all of that is remarkably cohesive. Like, you don't feel disjointed listening to it. You feel stimulated.
Very much so, yeah. It is a shot of espresso, baby.
And every moment brings something new and fresh. Much, Nick, like taking a walk in a beautiful countryside.
That's right.
From a distance, it might all look, samesies, but, as you look, there is a dewdrop. There is a rock that looks like a pair of breasts.
Very seductive pair of rocks.
I didn't make it past the rocks. I don't know what's past there. But the other, just to point out one kind of moment that I think really highlights this approach is there's a moment, I think a little bit later in the song, where the bass and the organ are having a bit of a conversation back and forth. And they're really operating on different ends of the pitch spectrum. The bass is obviously very low. The organ is playing with some higher notes, and the bass is going dum 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 dum, and the organ is dum 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 dum.
Yeah.
And that conversation back and forth, it's so engaging. You're like, every single note, you're like, what's going to happen next?
Yeah. And we have seen them, personally, you and I have seen them perform this live, and boy, those moments, those bumps, Ian in the front, like swinging his flute and hitting the time signature with a fist, like this is such a powerful
and
song.
kind of conducting, throwing focus to the bass, throwing focus to the piano. Mm-hmm. It's not just a pretty song on the album. It is a powerhouse, that is designed to be performed live as well.
Yeah. So effective. All right. Anything else musically, or you want to jump into lyrics?
Musically, I do want to talk about the ending.
Okay.
This is no casual fade out. This is no, kind of normal. This isn't, there are lots of sort of standard musical endings that you can pull from.
Mm-hmm.
Dim 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 dum dum.
Like a convenient, tasty little wrap up. Yeah.
Yeah, and we love them. They're familiar.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They're
nice. There's comfortable closure there. Yeah.
You can end with a big old electric wang on the guitar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is not familiar. This ending. This is not predictable. This is a different rhythm than I think anyone has ever done, and it ends you. It ends you. It ends with.
I am ended.
It ends leaving me feeling like completely exhausted and stimulated and like alive.
Alive and well and living.
Alive and well and living in.
Yeah.
It's like, what just passed through me? Where did I just go? Who am I? I want more.
A religious experience.
I need to start collecting acorns immediately.
Winter's coming.
If I don't step on a crunchy leaf in the next 6 seconds, I will literally die.
What have I done with my life if not that?
Exactly. So, yeah. Yes. Anything else from you, Nick, musically?
No. Not at all. I'm ready to move on lyrically. I think I would just repeat the same thing over and over.
Yes.
As I want to do. One thing lyrically about this one is one that I did not need to read the lyrics for at all.
It's very clear, isn't it?
Yeah, and this album, I think, just because I've ingrained myself with all of the content, I'm pretty sure I'll be doing very little reading along at this point, because
I think that part of that is because of Ian's singing style. He is making it purposefully really, really clear and crisp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little bit of a new a new vocal sound for Ian. I think we heard a little bit of it with Too Old to Rock and Roll. He wasn't too grungy or anything.
I mean, he's never been a mumbler, but I also, performatively, I wonder if there's something deeper going on here.
Mm-hmm.
If you truly believe in the words that you are saying, in the performance that you're doing, it'll come through with much more clarity than if you don't really know what the words mean, or if you, if you're like, yeah, I hate this show, I hate this song, but I'm going to sing it anyway.
Yeah. It's also, I think we can point out that there was a bit of a mumble period. I mean, just listen to those super early interviews that he did. And talking like this, and this, Jethro Tull. Like, he was that slurry, mumbly.
I can't believe I just realized that Robert Frost was giving the lyrics to the song.
Yeah, I think there has been a progression of his presentation, lyrically, vocally, even the character that is Ian Anderson.
Sure, yeah. The character of the tramp is different from the character of the forest man.
Yeah.
So let's talk about these lyrics specifically.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many references in this.
Yeah.
That are interesting. I mean, there's so many little expressions that I think are caged in kind of older pre-industrial revolution English culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we're going to I'm sure we're going to miss most of them.
Yeah.
But they're also, I mean, just like the imagery is really very beautiful and thematic.
Not only is it embracing the idea of following this narrator, this singer, into the green, the wood, to live an idyllic life, or at least just spend the next, I don't know, how long is the album? 45 minutes to an hour. Enjoy that green space for about an hour. There's a magic there. There's a mysticism that it's not just you saying, hey, look at this album art about the forest and listen. You will be transported. You will experience this.
I want to also, I mean, you're so right. And I also want to talk about this theme that runs throughout it, that what is being offered is a healing process. Let me bring you songs from the wood to make you feel much better than you could know. Even dust you down from tip to toe. I mean,
let me bring you songs from the woods to make you feel much better than you could know. Better than you could know. Dust you down from tip to toe.
That immediately makes me think of, I'm sure you remember at the fair when so many of the people that we interacted with were into kind of pseudo-spiritualism and traditional healing practices. Mm-hmm. There was the thing of like saging someone.
Yeah, a cleansing.
Yeah, which is a very ancient practice. You light some kind of a sacred plant on fire and you waft the smoke at them from head to toe to cleanse the impurities out of them.
Yeah, you start to finish, top to bottom. Yeah.
Right. To heal the wound and still the pain that threatens again and again.
To heal the wound and still the pain that threatens again and again.
You know, that there's something being offered here which is really cleansing and specifically healing of, the wound that we could say perhaps is inflicted by modern life.
Yeah, society, industry, capitalism.
Take your pick.
Yeah, exactly.
Your ex-wife.
Your ex-wife. Anything that could and will cause distress, you can find an escape and a healing to that in the woods.
And that is a theme, again, that is in older traditional songs in a certain way. It makes me think of the old Irish moonshining song, The Mountain Dew. At the top of the hill, there's a neat little still where the smoke curls up to the sky. But the smoke and the smell, you can plainly tell that there's switch and brew nearby. Throw away your pills, it'll cure all ills. Be a pagan or Christian or Jew. Take off your coat and grease your throat with a real old Mountain Dew.
At the foot of the hill there's a neat little still where the smoke curls up to the sky. By the smoke and the smell you can plainly tell that there's poaching brewing nearby. It fills the air with odour rare, and betwixt both me and you, when home you stroll you can take a bowl or a bucket of the Mountain Dew. Hi diddly day lum diddly doo diddly lum diddly doo right diddly day day. Hi diddly day lum diddly doo diddly lum diddly doo right diddly day day. Throw away your pills, it'll cure all ills, a pagan, a Christian or Jew.
You know, this idea that, like, what we're offering will cure you of anything.
Yeah.
Whatever your ills are, we can fix them.
Right. You may not be able to leave that life because of how society is structured.
That's right.
But we have that cure for you that every now and then you just gotta come out.
Need a little,
you just gotta come to us.
A nip of the woods.
Yeah.
Right, which, you know, in the Irish drinking song case, the solution is get completely blind drunk for a couple of hours.
Sometimes literally blind drunk, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A nip of the shine.
Right. And Ian's solution is, you know, that he has distilled the liquor of kind of traditional magical realism and ruralism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because going out into the woods was not necessarily an option. So if you can't do it, I'll bring it to you.
Well, yeah, sure, if you live in London.
Yeah. Right.
Although, you know, they have great green spaces. Well, and there is also in English, I mean, again, like this album is so couched in English culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There is a very strong English tradition of the ramble, you know, going for a long walk in a green space. And now, you know, now that England is on lockdown due to the pandemic, one of the government allowed activities is going out for a walk for exercise. And so it literally, going for a walk in the woods or in the fields is literally the only relief that people are allowed to have from being stuck in their homes all day. I mean, it's, you know, it's powerful what is being offered here.
There is something to be said for that. It's not just like tradition. It's not just sticking to what we know in terms of the British government and the British stick-to-itiveness, because they are very much set in tradition. There is a medicinal value. There is a health value to that.
Oh, yeah. What's the Japanese word?
Hug.
No, that's Norwegian. Oh, Shinrin-yoku is the Japanese word for forest bathing.
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
Which is studied to have physiological, psychological effects on one's health, positive ones.
Yeah, regardless of the culture, it is one of those things that across the ages and across the world, there is a reason that the earth, that the forest is revered and respected and utilized for health benefits.
Human need go see tree.
Human see tree, yeah. Yeah, that is the cave doctor's prescription. Yeah.
Take two tree, call in morning. Grunt me in morning.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about kitchen prose and gutter rhymes?
Sure. A very iconic line, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A singer of these ageless times, with kitchen prose and gutter rhymes.
But let's break it down a little bit. What do you make of those two contrasting offerings?
Well, to call anything kitchen, to use that as an adjective to describe something, makes me feel like it's commonplace.
Yeah.
It's something everyone would be accustomed to, something everyone would be used to and have access to.
Would you say it's almost like saying garden variety?
Yes, very much. Yeah.
So, I mean, and in the context of this, I feel like, you know, what he's offering is that prose that he's writing, the subjects that he's writing about are familiar everyday things.
Mm-hmm.
Things from everyday life.
Yeah.
But then...
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we contrast that with gutter rhymes. What do you make of that?
It won't always be floral and pretty and perfect. Some of it will be dirty. Some of it will be dirty in the sense of blue, like we see
Sexy.
in a song. In a song like Hunting Girl, you know.
Yeah. Black and blue, that one.
It makes it more accessible, however, to the broader spectrum of listener, because it's commonplace stuff and below, basically.
Yeah.
So anyone can listen to it, and they may not necessarily agree with the verbiage, but they will get the sentiment behind it.
Right. Like you said, it's not an idealized version of going off and living in the forest. It's the reality of it.
Mhm.
And that's messy, and, there's a lot of life, and life eating itself and
Right.
reproducing and all
The
that.
circle
Yeah.
of life finds a way, etc. Yeah.
I'm simply saying that life finds a way.
It's not a clean thing, and that is some of the beauty behind what we are about to experience and what we can appreciate.
Yeah. I want to give a little bit of historical context to this moment, Nick, because I think it might be interesting.
Sure.
As Ian was moving from the city to the country, he was not the only one in society doing that. There was a very significant back to the land movement happening in the 1970s.
Okay.
And it had, there have been back to the land movements at various points in history. People trying to reconnect with their agrarian roots or reject some of the evils of modern existence or urban existence.
Mhm.
In the 70s, it had some different roots, including the hippie movement. After the hippies were sort of like, had finished smoking all their weed, they were sort of like, all right, well, now what do we want to do about some of these ideals? They were like, well, maybe we should go live on a commune. That was part of that movement, and I think that was a bit of a later development of it. This idea of creating a more ideal society and where you have more autonomy and self-sufficiency, which were some of the virtues espoused by the movement.
Sure.
It also apparently had some of its roots in the civilian war effort of World War II, during the blockade of England and also in America. People were encouraged to plant.
Yeah.
In America, we call them victory gardens. I don't know what they called them in England. And people having gotten a taste of that kind of, growing, the pleasures of growing your own vegetables and being self-sufficient, that permeated the culture a little bit, and I think had some manifestation in this back to the land movement.
Sure. Why would you stop if you can continue to conserve money and provide for yourself? Why would you stop doing it just because the war is over? Yeah.
Oh, dig for victory, I think they called it in Great Britain. And in fact, my own upbringing on a farm/forest in upstate New York was partly motivated by my mom and dad's own back to the land movement. I mean, they moved to that spot and built the cabin that I grew up in the 1970s.
Wow.
Around almost exactly around this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much not hippies, but yeah, it didn't have to just be hippies to do that.
Yeah. My mom was a bit of a hippie, but not
little bit. The strictest hippie I've ever seen.
She'd gotten away from the sort of flower child and gone more into the environmentalism and
yeah, she used her powers for good. Yeah,
she did. So that's just a little bit of fun historical context for us.
Yeah, I think that is definitely apt and definitely something that we should keep in mind, particularly for this song and the overall feel of this album, for sure. Yeah. And the trajectory that Ian seems to be taking.
Well, right, because the thing was, he didn't just move to this farmhouse and live there.
Mm-hmm.
He apparently took on the responsibility of a working farm.
Yes, he had a working farm. He had work horses, which inspires the next album.
Yes.
Eventually, when he takes a little time off because he busts out his voice, he does the salmon farm.
Right.
So he seems to always have been interested. Once he took that jump to move out of the city, because he was wealthy enough, because he could escape, because he didn't have to be right there, Once he could do that, he really seemed to embrace it in a variety of iterations that we see throughout the years to come.
Yeah, and you can tell from the songwriting, from the singing, from the way that the band is playing, and, from the sort of energy that Ian is giving off, how meaningful and how grounded he is.
Yeah.
This, to me, sounds the most like Ian that Ian has sounded, if that makes sense. The most centered.
Yeah, this, I slightly attribute it to the fact that this was my first album, but this is what I think of when I think of Ian Anderson.
Sure, me too.
This feel.
But that's not the same for everyone. I mean, some people are
No.
much more,
I mean, some people like Walk Into the Light. So, Omen, what's a galliard?
A galliard! Ooh.
Galliards and lute songs served in chilling ale.
Let me bring you all things refined. Galliards and lute songs served in chilling ale. Greetings, well-met fellow, hail.
A galliard is a Renaissance dance.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I'm trying to remember what typifies it. It is also a certain type of music which accompanies the galliard.
Yes, generally, particularly around that time, they named the style of music to the dance, and they were interchangeable.
Well, and we still do. Mambo.
Sure, fair enough. Right.
The stanky leg. Great,
that,
wonderful musical style.
So it's not. This is a strictly choreographed dance. It's not.
Right.
There's nothing improvised about it, and it occupies one or more measures of music. In one measure, a galliard typically has 5 steps. In French, such a basic step is called cinq pas.
Cinq pas. 5 steps.
And in Italy, it's syncopasse.
Oh, which comes to syncopated, doesn't it? Because the galliard is in triple time. And so if you're dancing 5 steps in 3 time, you are syncopating. We just learned something, Nick.
And written in English, it is a syncopace that is right, left, cadence.
Huh.
It's an athletic dance because it is, what'd you say, 5 steps in 3 time?
Right.
That seems pretty busy. Characterized by leaps, jumps, hops, and other similar figures.
Yeah, well, the pictures of the paintings of it look very athletic.
Yeah, the main feature is the galliard step is a large jump after which the dancer lands with one leg ahead of the other. This is called the cadence. And the final landing is called a posture. Yeah. So that's a galliard. So this is taking us back to that Ren feel, for sure, that Renaissance feel that emanates throughout this song and frankly, the rest of the album as well.
Yeah.
So he says, let me bring you all things refined, galliards and lute songs, served in chilling ale, greeting, well-met fellow, hail, I am the wind to fill your sail, so on, so on.
Yeah.
He's saying, let's go back to a simpler time when entertainment was not the television or the radio or listening to vinyl. It was someone singing to you and someone live playing music so you could dance to it.
And not just dance, but leap around.
Yeah. I'm going to sing a song to make you rock out.
Yeah.
Woof. One final, I have a velvet mondegreen for you. Is it a bear? Is he shaking his hair? Is it velvet mondegreen?
Please, let me hear it.
The final Songs from the Wood make you feel much better. The way that they stretch the songs from the wood, songs from the wood, they make it stretch. I always heard of it as songs from another wood
Songs
make you feel much
from
better.
another wood. Yeah, I can hear it.
Songs from another wood make you feel much, much better.
Yeah. Huh.
Songs from the wood make you feel much better. Songs from the wood make you feel much better.
And it fits that way. It works that way. I could see it being either way, but according to the lyrics, it's just songs from the wood make you
Yes.
feel much better.
Songs from the wood.
Yeah. There's so much kind of stopping and glottal hitting that it's easy enough to hear another in there. And I challenge you to listen to it and not hear that.
Yeah, now I will.
Challenge all of you, yeah.
Nick, anything else that we want to say about the lyrics?
No, that is it for me for Songs from the Wood, I think. What about you, Omen?
I am just so delighted that we are in this album. I love this song. I think that, just a final note, the way that Ian is describing himself, I am the wind to fill your sail, I am the cross to take your nail.
A singer of these ageless times.
Yeah?
I am the wind to fill your sail. I am the cross to take your nail. ageless times.
He's describing himself in elemental terms.
Nice. Is the I'm the cross to take your nail, is that a Jesus reference?
Well,
It's difficult not to see it as the cross of the crucifixion. I mean, that is the most noticeable cross and nail, is it not?
of course, no. He's definitely making a reference to the crucifixion, but he's not saying I'm the guy that got nailed to the cross, or I'm the nail that's nailing the guy to the cross. The cross itself is a piece of wood,
It's made of wood, right?
and in ancient times, if you go back far enough, you see that same kind of imagery with the Greek gods, with Odin nailing himself or tying himself to Yggdrasil, the life tree. So, what the cross really represents as an altar for sacrifice, if you kind of go back to the pagan origins of some of this Christian mythology, I think he's really comparing himself to the life source that is so powerful that you can nail a demigod to it.
Right.
Maybe a bit of a
Right.
stretch, but that's my thought.
And also tying in with a singer of these ageless times, like he's talking to you right now, but he was there as a tree in the times of
Yeah.
Jesus.
He's the voice. He is the voice of eternity that has always been expressed through the growing of green things.
Oh, I want that as a tattoo.
The,
Just that quote.
ah,
And a picture of crucified Jesus, I think.
wow. Yeah, I think you can get that.
I'm sure someone will do it,
Someone will do it.
right?
Anything else to say about this song, Nick?
Oof. No, that's it. That is it.
Well, what do we have the pleasure of listening to next week?
Next week, track number 2 off of Songs from the Wood. It is Jack in the Green.
Such a unique, fun song.
Oh my gosh. Every one of the songs off this album are unique, fun songs.
They are. It's really, I'm so excited that we're here.
Until then,
Until next week.
you can be the songs from the internet singing your ageless tunes to iTunes. That was a stretch. I wasn't prepared for it. I went off the cuff. Not disappointed, but not great.
Fill up the rows of our podcast with the summer rain of your 5-star reviews. Your reviews can be the wind in the sails of our popularity and notoriety as a podcast.
And just our ego, too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Until next week, I am the slime trail left behind by the snail known as Omen Sade.
Is the snail known as Omen Sade, or the slime trail is known as Omen
No,
Sade?
the snail is Omen Sade. I'm the slime trail because it's just my voice.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I am the dandelion seeds on the wind, known as Nick McGill.
Is the wind known as Nick McGill, or is the seeds known as Nick McGill?
Yes.
Together, we are the ecosystem known as Feckless Momes.
And this is the mythical being that brings life and death to all. Talk Tull to me.
Brings death. Jeez.
It's a life cycle, circle of life. I have not seen a pileated Barrymore yet, and they tell me this is the place to go,
Oh yes.
but I haven't seen one.
I've been here since 6 a.m. and I heard one in that tree over there. I haven't seen one either.
Gosh, that's like the last one on my list.
Wow.
You were at the swamp last weekend, right?
Yes. Oh yes, I saw you. Yes. That's where we spotted the D. Palmer pigeon. The Palmer pigeon. That was a life lister for me. I had never seen one.
The D pigeon, yeah.
Yeah, the pigeon.
Yeah, the speckleback bar is known to hang around the Andersonian thrush.
Yes. I heard that both of those were on the Barrymore berry bush down in the Whirl earlier this week.
The Berry Bush Barlow.
Berry Bush Barlow Bar.
Aren't they? I believe they're also migrating, so we may be able to see them.
And they have wonderful
around
colors
here.
this time. Oh my God!
What is?
Shh! Don't move!
Is that a talk tell to me?
Look over there! Oh my gosh! I've never seen it talk tell to me so clearly.
Oh my gosh!
At this time of year?
I get it. I understand why they say that it's part of the Feckless Moans audio network.
It's a proud member.
It's so beautiful.